Hi everyone. Before the presentation start, this is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardenis, to use this as an educational material. Our group topic is all about human trafficking and human rights in migration. First, let me introduce the objectives of our topic. First one is define what is human trafficking and analyze the various examples of human trafficking. Second, identify and examine the three elements of human trafficking. The third, assess the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines. The fourth one, explore the relationship between human trafficking and migration. And the last one is understanding human rights in migration and evaluate the adverse effect of human trafficking in globalization. The topic is all about human trafficking. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a serious crime where people are taken or tricked and forced into a situation they cannot escape from. It often happens when someone is moved either within their own country or to another, and forced to work or do things against their will. Human trafficking is often called modern-day slavery because the victims have no freedom and are controlled by others. The most common victims of human trafficking are those in vulnerable situations including women and girls, often targeted for sex trafficking and domestic work as they are frequently exploited for labor and sex. Children, trafficked for labor or sex, especially if they are homeless or have no family support. People in poverty, lured with promises of work only to be exploited due to their financial hardship. Migrants and refugees often lack legal protection and can be exploited due to language barriers or unfamiliarity with the area. And LGBTQ plus individuals, especially vulnerable to trafficking due to discrimination, family rejection, or homelessness. Who are the traffickers? Traffickers can be foreign nationals or US citizens, family members, partners, acquaintances, and strangers. They can act alone as a part or organized criminal enterprise. People often correctly assume that all traffickers are males. However, the United States has prosecuted cases against women traffickers. Traffickers can be pimps, gang members, diplomats, business owners, labor brokers, and factory and company owners. And that's all for my topic.
Greetings everyone. I am here to tackle my topic, which is the examples of the human trafficking. So, what are examples of a human trafficking? Human trafficking is a complex crime that involves exploiting people for various forms of forced labor, sexual exploitations, and other forms of crimes or coercive abuse. Here are some common examples. Number 1, sexual exploitations. It refers to any situations in which an individual is manipulated, coerced, or forced into engaging in a sexual acts for the benefit or profit of other person. This can occur in various forms including forced prostitution, pornography, sex, tourism, and other exploitative practices where consent is the absent or obtained through deceit, manipulations, or other threats. In sexual exploitation, traffickers or exploiters often use control tactics like physical abuse, emotional manipulation, bondage, or threats to restrict a victim's freedom and prevent them from leaving the situation. Sexual exploitation is considered a severe human rights violations and is often linked to a human trafficking. Number 2 is forced labor. Forced labor victims are made to work against their will, often in industries like agriculture, constructions, manufacturing, domestic work, and more. They may face poor working conditions, little to no pay, and a threat of violence or deportation. Number 3. Deep bondage. Individuals forced are to work to repay a debt under terms that are abusive and make it impossible for them to leave. Often traffickers charge excessive fees or manipulate contracts, keep victims trapped in a cycle of debt. Number 4 is domestic servitude. It is a form of forced labor where individuals are exploited to work in private homes, performing tasks like cleaning and childcare. Victims often face isolations with held wages, threats, and restricted freedom, making it difficult for them to escape. This form of exploitation is a serious human rights violation, a type of a modern slavery. Number 5 is a organ removal. Victims are trafficked for the purpose of harvesting their organs for sale on the black market. This often done under coercion or force, and victims may face extreme health risk. Number 6 is forced begging. Traffickers force adults or children to beg on the other streets, sometimes using physical abuse or threats to ensure compliance and demanding that they hand over all earnings. Number 7 is child soldier. Child soldiers are individuals typically under the age of 18 who are forcibly recruited or used by armed groups to participate in an armed conflict. They may serve in various roles, including combatants, supports personnel, or victims of sexual exploitation. The recruitment of child soldiers is a violation of international law and human rights, resulting in a significant physical and psychological harm to the children involved. Number 8 is a forced marriage. Forced marriage, in some cases, people or often women and young girls are often into marriages against their will. They may be exploited for the labor or sexual purposes and often face restrictions on their freedom. Understanding this example highlights the different forms human trafficking can take and the vulnerability of individuals to exploitations across various settings. And that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Kadit Bukag. My topic is all about human trafficking. Human trafficking is a serious crime that involves exploiting people for various purposes, including forced labor, sexual exploitation, slavery, or organ trafficking. Is often called modern-day slavery because it deprives individuals of freedom and dignity, turning them into tools for profit. Human trafficking can happen across international borders or even within a person's own country. The process of trafficking typically involves three key elements. So the first one is act. The trafficker's actions to bring the persons into trafficking situation. This can include recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of individuals. Often traffickers target vulnerable people such as those facing economic hardship, homelessness, or family problems, making promises of better opportunities or well-paying jobs. So, the second one is means. This is how traffickers control or manipulate their victims. They may use force, threats, deception, or abuse of power to make it nearly impossible for victims to escape. For example, some traffickers take away victims' identification, threaten harm, or claim the victims owe them a debt for transportation or housing costs. So the last one is purpose. The end goal of exploitation: traffickers profit by forcing victims into different types of exploitative work such as labor in factories, agriculture, domestic work, or forcing them into sex work. The trafficker controls and exploits the victim's labor or body, usually keeping all or most of the money for themselves. So for a case to be considered human trafficking, these three elements usually need to be present. However, for minors, people under 18, the means element, coercion, force, or fraud isn't necessary. Any act with the purpose of exploitation involving a minor is automatically classified as trafficking. Human trafficking often goes unnoticed, but it's widespread, affecting millions of people worldwide. To combat trafficking, countries have set up laws, support systems, and hotlines to help victims and increase public awareness.
Hello, my name is Oshini Soloria and I am going to continue the topic of my classmate. So my topic is all about the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines nowadays. So the Philippines continues to face significant challenges in human trafficking. including forced labor, sex trafficking, and exploitation, linked to cyber scams. However, the nation has made considerable progress in combating these issues and has maintained a Tier 1 ranking in U.S. trafficking in persons TIP report for the ninth consecutive year, which indicates that it fully meets the minimum standard for the elimination of trafficking. This recognition is due to consistent government and community initiatives aimed at prosecuting traffickers, protecting victims, and preventing trafficking. The critical area of focus has been combating online sexual exploitation of children, or OSAEC, an issue prevalent in the Philippines due to the high poverty levels and increased internet access. Authorities have enacted the expanded Anti-Trafficking Act, which strengthens measures against online trafficking and exploiting. This law has led to several high-profile arrests and the dismantling of syndicates involved in OSIEC. While the Tier 1 status highlights effective policies and cooperation, experts argue that human trafficking in the Philippines still demands a whole-of-nation approach, integrating efforts from local governments, the private sector, and communities. Public awareness campaigns, capacity building for local officials, and better monitoring at transport hubs are part of the ongoing process to reduce trafficking risk further. So that is all my topic, and thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Decadit Bintolan and my topic is how can you relate human trafficking to migration. Human trafficking and migrations are closely linked as the movement of people, whether voluntary or forced, can create vulnerabilities that traffickers exploit. Migration, whether for economic opportunities, fleeing conflict, or seeking better living conditions, can lead individuals to enter the situations where they are at risk of trafficking. So, conflict between human trafficking and migration. So, first is the vulnerability. Migrants, particularly those who are documented or fleeing precarious situation, are often for susceptible to trafficking. They may lack legal protection, resources, and access to support system, making them easier target for traffickers. So, second is deceptive recruitment. So, traffickers often lure migrants with the false promise of the employment, education, or a better life in a new country. Once in the destination's country, these individuals may find themselves in the exploitative situations such as forced labor or sexual exploitation. So, 3 is irregular migration. Many migrants may choose or be forced into irregular migrations pathways, increasing the risk of encountering traffickers. In this situation, they often rely on smugglers who may turn out to be traffickers themselves. So, example, the poignant example is the trafficking of the migrants from Central America to United States. Many individuals flee violence, poverty, and political instability in countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. In their journey north, they may encounter smugglers who promise to help them cross the border. However, the some of these smugglers turn and to the traffickers, subjecting migrants to labor exploitation, sexual violence, or forcing them into the criminal activities. And that's all.
Understanding human rights in migration. Human rights are universal to apply to all individuals, regardless of their migratory status. This means that migrants, whether they are refugees, asylum seekers, economic migrants, or others, are entitled to the same fundamental rights as citizens. These rights include the right to life, liberty, the security of person, freedom from discrimination, the right to work, the right to health, the right to education, the right to housing, and the right to family life. However, migrants often face unique challenges in assessing and exercising these rights. They may be vulnerable to exploitation, abuse, and discrimination due to their irregular status or lack of knowledge about their rights. Additionally, they may be encountered barriers in accessing essential services like healthcare, education, and social welfare. To address these challenges, international human rights law provide a framework for protecting the rights of migrants. This includes instruments like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. These treaties establish standards for the treatment of migrants and outline the obligation of states to respect, protect, and fulfill their human rights. It is crucial to promote a human rights-based approach to migration, which recognizes the dignity and worth of all individuals and ensure that their rights are upheld. By doing so, we can create a more just and equitable world for all, regardless of their nationality or immigration status.
So good day everyone, I am Kadit Sagadal and our topic is the adverse effect of human trafficking to globalization. So human trafficking is a modern form of slavery caused a dark shadow over the globalization's positive aspects. So globalization interconnectedness, while fostering economic growth, has inadvertently created opportunities for traffickers to exploit vulnerable populations. So this ace of travel and communication facilitate the movement of victims cross borders, making it harder to track and prosecute the traffickers. The exploitation of trafficked individuals in various industries undermines fair labor practices and wages, creating an uneven playing field for legitimate businesses. This also erodes human rights and social fabric. As a victim, suffered physical and psychological trauma, and communities become fragmented by fear. Moreover, the profits generated by the human trafficking fuel corruption and undermine the role of law, weakening government ability to combat the crime. The internet and social media have also become tools for traffickers to target and exploit the victims, creating a globalized market for this horrific crime. Ultimately, human trafficking undermines the very principle of freedom, dignity, and equality that globalization aims to promote.
Good day everyone, I'm Katit Kabahog. I will continue to tackle our topic. It's all about the adverse effect of human rights to globalization. So, while human rights positively impact globalization, there are also some negative effects or challenges associated with integrating human rights into the global landscapes. So, the first one is conflict with national sovereignty. So, imposing global human rights standards can create tension as some countries view this as interference with their sovereignty. This can lead to resistance, especially when human rights norms clash with local laws or cultural values. So, the second is economic sanction and trade restriction. So, sanctions imposed for human rights violations can harm a country's economy, can lead to hardship for the general populations, sometimes without significantly impacting authorities responsible for the abuses. So, the next is the increase of cost for business. So, global human rights expectations requires companies to follow strict labor and environmental standards, which can be costly. Smaller business, particularly in developing countries, may struggle to compete or even survive under these pressures. So, the next is exploitation of labor developing nations. So, despite of global rights standards, multinational cooperation may still find way to exploit cheap labor in developing countries. Often, with minimal oversight, this can prevent or cycles of poverty and economic inequality. So, the next is migration and social tensions. Protecting human rights for migrants and refugees can lead to increased migration, sometimes straining resources and creating social tensions in host countries. This can lead to backlash and discriminatory policies. So, next is selective human rights advocacy. Some critics argue the human rights concerns are selectively emphasized by powerful countries or organizations to achieve political or economic goals, rather than purely ethical reasons. This can undermine the credibility of human rights efforts and create double standards. So, the last one is cultural homogenizations. So, global human rights standards, though valuable, can sometimes overlook or undermine traditional customs and social norms, leading to the erosion of cultural diversity in favor of a more uniform, globalized cultures. So, these challenges reveal the complexities of alignment human rights with globalization, as well as a need to address the united consequence of promoting universal standards across diverse societies. That's all, and thank you.